right, good morning, everyone. Hi, can you hear me? Yes, and hopefully online you can hear me and see me as well. My name is Lauren. I'm from the Student Learning Support Service. I'm a learning and teaching specialist academic, so hello. And I'm joined by my colleagues here, Claire and Angela, who are also learning and teaching academics in the SLSS. So if you're joining us online, good morning, welcome. I'm not actually sure where the camera is, but hello. We've got quite a few of you online today. These guys will be taking your questions online, so don't be afraid to write your questions in the chat. For those of you here in the room, of course, just pop your hand up and I'm happy to take questions at any point throughout the presentation today. So welcome. Is this anyone's first session for orientation? No, good. You've all been to a couple of other sessions either through us, the SLSS, or maybe in your colleges or elsewhere around the uni. Yeah. Is this your first time at Flinders, either today or yesterday? Yeah. How does it feel? You all made it to the room, so congratulations, because that's, I think, one of the most difficult things about starting to study at Flinders is just getting lost. So well done. Pat yourselves on the back for making it here. And for those of you who found us online as well, for managing to join, that can also be quite challenging sometimes. So today we're here to talk about time management, which is a topic that often doesn't attract as many students as some of our other topics, but it should, because time management is one of the most important skills that you need as a student. And it is a skill, just like anything else. It's something that we have to practice and something that we get better at. But I'm going to go into more of that, obviously, as I go. Is there anything else that I need to introduce before I get started? All good? Anything that online people need to know? No? Okay, so before I officially begin, I want to start by acknowledging that we're teaching and learning on Kaurna country, Kaurna Yatja today. I want to pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that this land is unceded. This is a really beautiful campus. We're really lucky to have, such a beautiful Kaurna land to teach on. And of course, Flinders has campuses all over, particularly the central corridor of Australia on many different lands. So I pay my respects to all of the lands that Flinders teaches and learns on, and that you may be joining us from online as well. All right, so university, when you first get started, can often feel a little bit like this. Okay, this roller coaster. As you can see, there's lots of people having fun. They're really excited, ready to go. They're feeling great. But then you kind of start to approach that first hill, right? And your nerves set in and you go, oh, hang on a minute, what have I done? I thought this was going to be really fun and really exciting and amazing, but now I'm starting to feel really, really nervous. And the anxiety might set in because, you're cresting up that hill, things are looking a little bit scary and tense. But then you make it to the top and you come down and you're like, oh, whew, first hill done, I got there. That's your first assignment that you've had to submit. Or, just the first time finding a room in the campus can sometimes feel like going up that hill. And then you're feeling good. You're like, okay, I've got this. We did that first hill. Everything's going okay. And then you turn around a sharp bend and suddenly you're thrown out of whack again and you started to feel nervous again because things are coming at you that you didn't expect. And that happens up and down throughout the semester. And that's normal, okay? That's how it's going to feel. And we can put in as many strategies as we like to help get on top of our time management and help us, learn to navigate those tracks, learn where the turns are, where the hills are, so that we can prepare ourselves for them. But all of our best laid plans don't always work. And so we've got to learn how to get back on track when we maybe fall off. So today I'm talking about some strategies to help you stay on track and help you navigate all those twists and turns and hills that the semester is going to throw at you. These are, the three key strategies that I've called due date tactics. So this is how we make a plan to complete our assignments by working backwards. How to maximize our time. So this is looking at our weekly schedule, how we can make the most of, thinking about when our classes are, when our study time is going to be, and how we manage that with all of the rest of our commitments. And assignments one bite at a time. So how do we chunk our way to success? How do we break things down into nice, easy to eat, small chunks? So basically, these are the strategies that will help you stay on course. Because as I sort of mentioned, when I first got started, is time management is a skill. Okay, it's not something that just magically happens. You don't just wake up and go, oh, I'm a university student now, so I'm just going to be really good at time management. Or I've bought these new notebooks and these new diaries, and that's going to magically make me, you know, an organized person. That's a little bit like expecting that, oh, I bought a piano, so I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm suddenly going to be an expert piano player, right? That's not how it works. This is a skill you have to practice. You won't be perfect at it at first. You're going to fall off track, and you need to have tools like these to help you get back on when you do, okay? So I really want to emphasize that. It's a skill that you will learn and you will practice. None of us are inherently or naturally good at time management, or very, very few people are just naturally good at time management. Humans are actually really, really terrible procrastinators. We're naturally drawn to procrastination, and that's actually due to a lot of kind of biological reasons that stretch back to, you know, when we were hunting and gathering and needed to preserve our energy. Apparently, one study I think said that 90% of students reported some level of procrastination in their studies, and 50% of students admitted to like high levels of procrastination. Okay, so it's just sort of built into us, the procrastination. So don't feel like it's like a failure on your part, a personal failure if you put assignments off and feel like you're not very good at time management. It's just part of the human condition. Because also the truth is that we're often, you know, balancing a lot of things at the same time as we're studying. We're not just studying, many of you might be working as well. Who also has a job? Yep. Who has family that they need to care for? Yep. Who has other kind of maybe sport commitments or community commitments or social commitments, right? None of us are just a student alone. And those other things in our lives are important, right? And so we need to learn how to balance those. Does anyone else have any other commitments they want to share that sort of make their time management really difficult? Yes? So you volunteer at the church. You attend two different churches. Yeah, that must be very time consuming. Yeah, and I'm sure that's an important commitment for you. Yeah, definitely. Anyone else have any other big life commitments? Yes? So you volunteer once a week and you have 2 different sports that you're juggling? Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty common. Sorry? During the summer, it's bad. Yeah. And March is, yeah. Yeah, so yes. So just for the people online, you're saying you're kind of juggling when those sports cross over at different times of the year and making decisions between those. And then you throw uni into the mix as well. And now you've got a third thing you need to juggle. Yep. Also, yeah, we have to make choices and prioritize. Yeah, so, and that will come up. We're going to talk a little bit about how to prioritize as well. Because if we don't prioritize and if we don't have a plan, we can often feel, you know, like this guy, right? I'm sure you're all familiar with this meme of the everything being on fire. This is fine. This is how many university students feel throughout the semester as they're studying. Like everything around them is chaos. They're just like, oh, I'm okay. The other thing as well is that often we feel like we might be the only ones experiencing this stress, that like we're the only ones whose lives are on fire, because when you look around at everybody else in the room, in your lecture theatre and your tutorial classes, everybody else looks so calm and on top of things. And they've all got their notebooks and they've got their readings done and they're all just like working away. The truth is that like 90% of the people in your classroom are also like this, okay? They're just, nobody talks about it. Nobody shares it. So how do we keep on top of it and avoid burning the house down? Actually first, yes, coming back to why time management is so hard, it is because it is very, very complicated. Like I said, human beings are not actually naturally drawn to being very good at managing and organizing our time. We are natural procrastinators. And we're also famously bad at estimating how long things will realistically take us. I don't know if I'm the only person in the room who wakes up every single morning and is just constantly 5 minutes late for wherever I need to be, right? Even though I do it every single week or every single day even. I have a dance class that I go to on Thursdays. I have to leave my house before 6:30 in order to get there on time, right? Every single week, I leave my house at 6:35. And I do this literally every single week, right? Because I always underestimate how long it's going to take me to get ready, even though I know that it's going to take me longer than I think it will. So we all do this. We procrastinate. We have problems with motivation. We overcommit ourselves. We often maybe deal with issues of perfectionism. You know, we keep doing things off because we're afraid that our attempts aren't going to be good enough. So we're waiting for this magical moment when suddenly things will be really good. We avoid the things that are really hard. And like I said, we're not realistic about time. The other thing that's related to this, I guess, is, you know, we often wait, particularly with motivation, we wait for the magical motivation fairy to arrive and just sort of like sprinkle her dust on us, right, and get us moving. Is anyone familiar with the myth of the Greek muses? You know, so in Greek legend, there were these muses, and they're the ones who inspire artists to create things. And so the idea is that like this artistic motivation came from these mythical beings who weren't really human. But they are a myth and they don't exist. So we have to be able to create that motivation for ourselves. And it's a bit like pushing a rock up a hill sometimes, right? Like getting a rock moving in the first place is really, really hard. But action, once that rock is moving, it's much easier to keep it going. Okay, so we're going to work on getting our rock moving today. Hopefully you walk out of here with strategies to start pushing the rock so that once it's going, it'll just keep going. Okay, so let's talk about the first tactic, due date tactics, which is how we work backwards to make a plan to complete our assignments. Oh, actually, before I do, is there any questions first? Before we get into this, you guys are all good? Okay, so at Flinders, and this is a little bit different from maybe some other universities that you might have studied at, most courses have a 13 or 14 week semester, okay? Sorry. Unless you're studying something like nursing or, you know, maybe an MBA or something that might have trimesters instead of semesters. Otherwise, you can usually assume you've got this same 2 semesters in a year of about 14 weeks each, with a mid-semester break in April and September, and that mid-year break, which we're just coming out of now in the middle of the year. Generally, if we're thinking about that idea of the roller coaster, your first peak will come up around week 6 or 7. That's when the first lot of assignments are due. And then, of course, you're also going to have your end of semester assignments, usually around weeks 10 to 14. Students often express frustration, like, why do my lecturers make all of the assignments due at the same time? Don't they know that everything, you know, all of the other topic coordinators are also making their assignments due at the same time? Yes, they do. Unfortunately, because of this semester, you know, length, when else are they going to do it? Okay, you need to have a few weeks to be introduced to your topic, and then you need to have your first little assignment. Then they need time to mark that. You need time to learn more content. And then, of course, at the end of semester, you have to have your major assignments due with time for this, you know, for them to be marked and returned to you for your final grades to be done. So it's just a product of the system that, yes, all of your assignments will be in these peaks. It's unavoidable. So we need a plan for that, right? So that you don't get to week 6 and go, oh my God, I've got 3 assignments due in a week. What am I going to do? Because actually, ideally, we should have been planning for this weeks before that. So how do we do that? What we're going to do is, everybody here, what I want you to do is when you log into Canvas or Flow, depending on where your topics are, go into each of your topics and find your assignment instructions. Once you've found all of the assignments for each topic, get your diary, get a calendar, get your semester planner, and write every single due date in that calendar or planner. This is going to give you a visual idea of where exactly those clusters are. And you will notice that they will be in clusters, right? So then once you've got those due dates in there, firstly think about how much is each assessment worth? So how much time are you likely going to need to spend on each assignment? Because let's say you've got a 1,000 word reflection that's worth 10%, and you've got a 2,000 word research essay that's worth 50%. Those two things require different amounts of time from you, okay? Then we're going to think about these 4 stages of that assignment process. What's a planning start date? And again, depending on the weighting and the length of that assignment, you might go back in your calendar 2 or 3 weeks. If it's a big assignment like a research essay, I'd recommend going back at least 3 weeks. Put in your calendar that planning start date so that you know this is the time when I'm going to look at the assignment instructions. I'm going to analyze the question and understand what's expected of me. And then you're going to think about a research start date. Okay, so I've looked at the question, maybe I've done a bit of brainstorming. Now I'm going to start plugging those keywords into Find It at Flinders and Google Scholar. And then a drafting start date. So now I've done some research, maybe I've spent a week on that reading and taking note process, going to start writing. And then of course we want to give ourselves enough time to edit. Okay, so you've got a full first draft, but now you need to work on the structure. Maybe you need to delete some stuff because it's too long, or you want to come and see us, you know, the Student Learning Support Service, to get some help with some elements that are still kind of not working. So you need to give yourself time to ask people questions and get some feedback before you submit. Does that all make sense? So what you end up with, this is a bit of an illustration for you, is let's say I've got my calendar here. And as you can see, there's a couple of assignments that I've put in here. An English reflection, which is 1,000 words, an Australian Studies essay, which is 2,000 words, and a comms essay, which is 1,500 words. These are all due within a couple of weeks of each other, right? So you don't want to be leaving, you know, the comms essay until after you finish this, because then you're only giving yourself less than a week to do that. And that's quite often how students work. They go one assignment at a time. But again, if you've got an assignment that's worth 50%, that follows, you know, a few days later as an assignment that's worth 10 or 20%, you're not giving yourself enough time. You're not balancing or prioritizing each of those assignments well. So I've put my due dates in. Next, I'm going to put in those start research drafting dates. So I've got my Australian Studies start date 3 weeks before the assignment's due. My research start date a few days after that. Starting a draft date another week later, and then an edit date another week after that. So now I've given myself a good sort of 4 or 5 days of having a solid draft where I can, you know, maybe upload it to Studiosity and get some feedback, or go to the Learning Lounge and get some feedback from someone, or continuing to work on it and refine it for myself. I've also given myself a buffer. So if something goes wrong in my life, something, I've gotten sick, or a family member's gotten sick that I need to care for, or something, you know, I've been asked to pick up some extra shifts at work, I've given myself enough time that I can manage all of those sort of unexpected things that are coming at me. And then by the time I do this for all 3 of those assignments, I now have a plan. I know how I'm going to juggle and manage each of those assessments so that I'm not sort of panicked by having the one coming immediately after the other. And you can see this suddenly looks quite busy, right? You know, whereas before, I might have been like, I'm fine through, you know, till sort of mid-October, that's easy. But actually now I know that I need to be starting to work really early, right? So that I can fit all of that in. Does that make sense? Yep, everyone's. Has anyone ever used a technique like this before? No? Well, hopefully you maybe think about using it. Oh, okay, so you maybe haven't done it for a while, since school. Yeah. And again, remember that like I keep saying, time management is a skill. So you might do this at first for your first bunch of assignments, and then everything gets hectic and gets busy and you don't do it again. That's okay. Reset. If you find yourself that, you know, the cart's going off the tracks, it's okay. Put it back on. Next semester, start again, try it again, see what works for you. Okay, so we're looking at that sort of semester long idea of how we're managing our time. Now let's bring it down to the weekly schedule, okay? So on our weekly schedule, we're going to be thinking about a couple of things. Most topics, their contact hours might be really short. So depending on what you're studying, you might only have 2 or 3 hours of actual, lecture or tutorial time a week. If you're, again, doing something like nursing or medicine or something, then you probably have far more contact hours than that. It obviously varies. But if you do have one of those topics with low contact hours, that is, of course, not the total amount of time that's expected of you in that topic, right? Most of the time, if you're studying a full-time study load, it's equivalent to full-time work. You should be putting in 38 hours a week in total of study. Okay, so each topic's probably going to demand about 7 or 8 hours of you per week. And that means, obviously, you've got your in-class time, and then you've got all of your preparation time. You need to do your readings. Maybe you've got discussion forum posts that you need to respond to. You've got assignments that you're working towards. You might have other materials you need to catch up on. So we want to think about how do we need to plan that weekly schedule to, again, fit all of that other stuff in, as well as all of the other stuff that you have going on in your life, your work commitments, your family commitments, your church commitments, your sport commitments, all of those things as well. So this is where you want something like a weekly planner. It could be really simple, like the one that's on here, but I like to get complicated and realistic. So I use Outlook for everything. I wouldn't know where I wouldn't have shown up here today if I didn't have Outlook in my calendar, okay? Well, I would have, because these guys would have reminded me, but I probably would have been quite panicked about it. So on this slide, I've just put in those blocks of time of when I have my classes. So this is when I'm in the lecture theatre, or I'm in the tutorial room, or I'm on a, Teams workshop online, whatever it might be, right? Face-to-face time. And again, you can see my schedule actually looks really free. And this can be a little bit of an illusion, because you can look at this and think, I've got heaps of time. I don't need to worry about it, right? I'm going to pop out to Marion for lunch with my friends, or I'm going to have a, I don't know, watch a movie every night, play some games. And of course, you can do those things. I'm not saying you can't do those things, but we're going to schedule it in. So let's be realistic about our time. When do we have those other commitments? Okay, what time do you generally wake up? When do you like to have lunch? What other sort of, you don't have to get nitty gritty like this. You don't have to schedule in dinner every single night, but I'm using this to illustrate being realistic about our time. We also have to take into account, when are we traveling? How long does it take you to travel? I used to have an 1.5-hour bus trip here to Flinders every day. I did a lot of my readings on my bus all the way from, was it the Modbury interchange all the way up to Flinders. It was a long, long way, and that was before the G40 existed. There was no express bus. Okay, so once I've got in all of these other commitments, when I've got soccer practice, when I'm going to go for a run, when I've got yoga, etc. Now I want to block out that study time. Okay, so remember, I've got those extra hours a week of non-contact time with my topics that I need to sort of fit into my schedule. This is when I'm going to be doing my readings. This is when I'm going to be working on each of those assignments, etc. And also, when do I have work? What do those work commitments look like? Once you sort of put all of this together, you can see how quickly this schedule has filled up, right? And again, there's spaces in here, but that's probably because, again, you need to walk from A to B. You also need time to get up and stretch your legs. You don't want to fill every single moment of your day, but you want to be able to try to get a realistic picture of when you actually have time to do things. I also recommend, when we're thinking about study time, how long you're going to set aside in a day for a study session, try to factor in like 2 to 3 hour blocks of time rather than really long stretches. A lot of students, pull the all-nighters or cram all day in the library. It's actually just not a very effective study method. Okay, our brain only is capable of holding a certain amount of information at any one time. It's only capable of processing a certain amount of information at any one time. So we actually need to give ourselves breaks. So 2 to 3 hours is ideal. And even within those 2 to 3 hours, you still need to be breaking that up into maybe 30 or 45-minute intense study periods with a little 5 or 10-minute break to get up and stretch your legs and walk around. I also really want to emphasize the importance of sleep. Okay, Sleep is super, super important to your brain's functionality. If you don't sleep, you will not retain or understand or remember anything that you learn. Obviously, that's really important, especially during exam time. And don't give up your whole life, right? If you're organized and you know that these are the times that I study and it's sufficient time to get done what I need to get done, you don't have to give up your sport. You don't have to give up your, weekly, or daily gym sessions, or your time with your family, or your time to just sit and like play games at night, because that's how you unwind. Whatever it is you do, just like keep doing it. Just do it in an organized and mindful way. Any questions about that? Make sense? Again, does anyone get this nitty-gritty with their diaries? No? Yeah. Google Calendar. Yep. Yep.
What days I've got my course, what appointments I've got, like, then, and like, I've also put at the top of the list, like at the top of the page, what we're doing that week, so I already know. And
perfect. Like I love that. For those online, so what she was saying is you were using like a Google Calendar, switch to an actual physical diary, because that's what works for you. And so this is it, find what works for you. And then you've put in all of your class times, as well as what you're actually doing that week. So like what the focus of the week is. Yeah, and all of your sports commitments. Yeah, perfect. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, and if you don't already have one, I think you can, Diffuser still have diaries? Semester 2, so they might have run out. But certainly you can get, is that a Fuser diary? Oh, that's yours, yeah. So yeah, get a diary, use Outlook, use Google, whatever works for you. Like I said, Outlook is what works for me. So that's what I like to use. Yeah. Well, that's true as well, because so again, for those online, what she's saying is she goes through week by week and can see which weeks are busy and which weeks aren't busy. Because that's the other thing, again, because of that roller coaster structure of the semester, not every week is going to look the same. Some weeks you are going to need to put in more time. No matter how organized you are and how much you schedule your weeks, when you have those clusters of assignments all due at the same time, or when you're coming up to exams, if you have quite a few exams, you are going to need to just commit more to your studies. And it will swing around, because then you get to have like basically a whole month off in the middle of the year. So, there's lean in and lean out kind of thing as we go. The other thing I want to emphasize actually firstly with this is don't panic if things go wrong, because they will. Like I said, you will get sick, or you will have family who get sick, or you will have, something go wrong with your car and you can't get, or you'll miss your bus, or whatever it is. Things happen in life. Be flexible. You can react to things as they happen and don't panic about it. Because if you are generally organized and kind of on top of what you're doing, again, you've given yourself room for these things. And if something really bad goes wrong, seek help, okay? The, SLSS is here, Student Learning Support Service. We can help you get back on track with things like your time management or getting on top of your assignments if you don't understand what's expected of you. Health and counselling are there as well if you're really struggling with chronic procrastination or anxiety or any of those other factors that can really stall our studies. All you need to do is seek help. So if this isn't going to plan, reach out. There's lots of support services at the university that can help you get back on track with your studies. Okay, yeah, any questions before I move on again? No? All good online? Yep. Okay, so this technique, assignments one bite at a time, this is all about chunking, okay? And I use this title because it comes from when I was doing my PhD, which is a huge, 100,000 word thesis that you're writing over the period of, 3 or 4 years. It's an enormous document, an enormous single piece of work to be progressing through, and that can get very overwhelming. Claire has just finished hers, so she knows all about how overwhelming and stressful that can be. But I remember my PhD supervisor telling me one day, you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Okay, and obviously she wasn't advocating that I eat an actual elephant. But the idea, of course, is that we can have many of these very, very big, huge projects in front of us, and they can be really overwhelming. And they can be overwhelming to the point that we don't know how to begin, we don't know how to keep the ball moving, and then we get stuck and we stop. So this is all about breaking things down into really small, achievable chunks or little bites. So it's that process of breaking projects into small parts. This is both really important in terms of, you know, our ability to get started on a project and manage that project. But it also is a really useful just sort of study technique as well. And if we're thinking about that process we talked about with that semester-long plan of working backwards and putting in our planning date, our research date, you know, etc. It's also about knowing all of the steps that are required of you to complete a task and knowing how to prioritize those as well. So again, we need to sort of firstly understand what our project is. So spend some time thinking about the task in front of you. Again, how long is it? What is it worth? What are the requirements? Maybe it means asking what are the research requirements? You know, sometimes some topics may require you to use only peer-reviewed journal articles. For others, you may need to use, you know, sort of organizational websites and things. So really understanding what do you need to do, and then breaking down the project into those small parts. So firstly, there's the ones we already talked about: planning, you know, brainstorming, researching, reading, note-taking, drafting, editing. But you can get really small. In the writing stage, okay, there's many parts to the writing stage. So let's say you've got an outline. Now you need to write an introduction. Now you need to write body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, you know, conclusion. You need to integrate your references, maybe double check your references. All of these are small little tasks that you can focus on in each of those study sessions. So again, if you're, you've got your 2-hour study session set up, you know, that's in your weekly schedule, rather than just saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to do this assignment A, you know, no, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to read article A, I'm going to take notes on it, and I'm going to integrate those notes into my draft or into my outline. That's my goal. Those are my chunks for this study session. And then you also get a sense of achievement. You know exactly how far you've progressed. You know if you're getting behind on anything. And it just makes managing that project much, much easier. We also, again, need to think about the roller coaster and all of those competing priorities. Like, you know, you've said in the middle here that sometimes you need to make choices between doing a couple of things. So we also can think about what are the really urgent tasks that I need to do. What are the important tasks and what are the not so important things? Again, during my PhD, I had a habit of what I don't know if this is a real word, it probably is, but I would call it like just active procrastination, which would be when I would do a useful task, like it was something I was maybe some part of my casual teaching that I was being paid for, or you know, looking up and double checking my references or whatever it was that was sort of productive, but it wasn't the task that I really should have been doing, which was writing my PhD. Okay, so this is sort of that proactive procrastination. We're working, so we feel like we're doing something, but we're actually falling behind on the stuff that's really important. So this is where prioritizing each of those little tasks can also really help us to navigate, again, the ups and downs of that roller coaster of the semester structure. Does anyone else have any techniques that they use when they're planning assignments or, you know, trying to figure out how to work productively? Oh, again, yes? Breaking it down, yeah. Yeah. Well, this is and this is, I think, a really good tech. So again, for those of you online, so what she said is, really breaking down an individual task. So again, let's say you've got an essay that's 1,000 words, breaking it down, introduction, 3 key topics and conclusion, and actually giving those each a word count is really helpful, because once you do that, you see how small each part is. Like an introduction is 10% of your word count, that's 100 words. Each body paragraph might be 250 words. A 250 word body paragraph, if you're sitting down in 1 2-hour session to write that, that's easy. You can sit down and go, oh, I can do that. It's only 250 words. It's yeah. I honestly don't know how people work without breaking down tasks like that. I work with students obviously all the time whose strategy for completing assignments is to just sit in front of their computer and open a new Word document. Does anyone do that? And then just start writing? Or does anyone do that and have what I also call the terror of the blank page, which is when you open a new Word document and then that cursor is just blinking at you? And you feel like, what do I do now? Oh, I don't know where to start. I have no idea what I should write. Well, of course you don't. Because if you haven't broken it down into all those steps, where are you supposed to start? There's so many things in your brain all at once. If you're just sitting down and going, okay, I've got to do this assignment, sit down at a computer, open a Word document and start writing. You're thinking about the structure of that assignment. You're thinking about the content, all of the parts of the content, maybe 3 key topics that you've got to talk about. You're thinking about the evidence and the research that maybe you've already done or maybe you still have to do. Thinking about the references that you need to integrate. You're thinking about the logic of the connections between your ideas. You're thinking about the grammar of your sentences and how each sentence comes together. If you break them down into these small little chunks, your brain is focusing on just one of those elements at a time. Write an outline first where you're just thinking about the key ideas. Then structure that outline. Now you're just thinking about structure and logic. Then go and do your research and integrate that into your outline. Now you're focusing on just that. Then when you come to, again, actually writing, you can go, oh, I'm just going to write this one key paragraph, paragraph 1. I've got my notes over here. I've done my research. I know exactly what the topic of that paragraph is. I know exactly where my research for that paragraph is. Now all I need to do is think about sentence structure. Easy, right? So much easier. I work like that in every single thing that I write. I basically write emails thinking like that. Okay, I write dot points for myself for every single thing that I do. I also, just as a little caveat on that, actually, I know you probably may or may not have played with, AI, so things like ChatGPT. But if you are, these are becoming, tools that are going to be used in your study and that will be in your assignments in ways that are allowed and not allowed. Some students are concerned about being falsely accused of using AI in ways that are not permitted. If you've got that body of work, if you can show, here's my outline, here's my brainstorming, here's my research notes, here's my draft, right? You can show that that work is yours. And if you ever do get a false flag for being, using something like ChatGPT in a way that's not allowed, you can show your work, right? It's just like when you get a maths question on a quiz when you're in high school, show your work. You can't just write the right answer. So there's many reasons why these techniques are very useful, and I hope you will implement them because they will make the biggest difference to your studies. Any questions about that before we move on? Nothing online? So uni, I guess for everybody, is different. What are your expectations about what uni is going to be like? Everyone's shy. This is actually a lot of what uni's like. Is your lecturer asking a question to a silent room? This is a lot. This happens a lot. Is anyone sort of nervous still? A few hands. Is anyone feeling maybe overwhelmed? A few hands. Anyone feeling really excited? Okay, good. I'm glad to see the excited hands. And you can be feeling all of those things at once. Is it? Somebody has said there's going to be a lot of work. Expectation of there being a lot of work. Yes. But again, that's why we're going to implement these strategies, right? So that we can manage that lot of work. Because yes, there will be a lot of work. It's what the study is. So yeah, anyone else? Any other expectations? Do you know what else? It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, yes, it is going to be a lot of work. It is going to require you to practice this skill of time management and organization over and over and over again, just like you would if you're learning to play the piano. You're not all suddenly going to become expert time managers because you've been to this session today and because you bought yourself a new diary. You got to practice it over and over and over again. But it is also fun. There's clubs that you can join, organizations and student groups that you can join. You're going to meet new people. You're going to, you know, have all of these new experiences. So it's all balance, right? So we are nearly sort of done. So the other thing is, you know, uni is different for everybody. Be flexible, be kind to yourself, okay? The university also has a lot of support. So reach out for it. There is this sort of expectation. A lot of people assume that I'm at university. That means I have to be a really independent learner. And yes, you do have to be an independent learner. There won't be somebody holding your hand and maybe not reminding you every single time you have something due or, you know, that you need to do a reading or whatever. The expectation is that you will be on top of those things. But all you need to do is ask for help. Okay, there might not be somebody in the room who notices and says, oh, you really seem like you're struggling. Here's some resources for you. But if you ask for them, they are there. Okay, so please reach out for support if you need it. So for us, the SLSS, we have a range of different supports to help you with your studies, both with your time management and with your, you know, academic skills. We've got the Learning Lounge, which is a drop-in you know, study support service in the central library up on level 2. Okay, that's you can go in and speak to a learning advisor, just someone one-on-one, ask questions about what is this assignment actually asking of me, or I need to reference but I've never referenced before, or I've used a different system and I don't understand this one. All of those kinds of questions. Studiosity is available 24/7 and it's online. So again, if you've written a draft for your assignment, and this is why we want to give ourselves time, after we've written our draft, before you submit, you can upload it to Studiosity and get some feedback through them on again, academic writing, things like that. We also have, there's EndNote sessions that are run by the library. So if you are using EndNote, which is a referencing software, you can learn about how to use that in the library during semester. And we have our English for Academic Purposes workshops. And these are a series of workshops. They're 2 hours each, held throughout the semester on topics like, well, how to get started with academic writing? You know, how do you understand your task? And how do you plan and prepare? How do you reference? How do you paraphrase? What else is there, Claire? How do you construct a sentence? That might seem easy, but it's harder than you think it is. How do you write clearly and precisely? All of these kinds of things. So you can find out all about that on our website. So do check it out. You can use that, scan that code, or if you just Google SLSS Flinders, you'll find us. We also have a lot of online study guides. So resources, you know, how do I do APA referencing, or how do I write an essay? How do I manage my time better? Lots and lots of different guides and videos. And of course, there's also FUSA, the student union, who have things like advocacy if you need to talk to somebody, you know, if you're, need someone to help advocate for you, financial help, things like that. And of course, health and counselling. So if you need to speak with someone because you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or have any other issues in your life, it doesn't have to be study related, please go and seek that help. I think that's pretty much, additional resources. Back on track, which is if you have failed an assignment and get a resubmission, you can come and chat to one of us for an extended consultation. We can help you sort of get back on track, figure out what you need to do to pass or maybe do better next time. The learning toolkits are all of our online resources And of course, the ready to go sessions, which you already know about because you're here. And this is us, the SLSS. So don't be afraid to come and find us and ask us questions. And we hope to see you around. Does anyone have any questions before you go? No, nothing online? Ah, yes. So yes, that this session is being recorded, as have our previous sessions, and the recordings for these will be available on our website as well if you want to rewatch anything or if you missed a session and would like to catch up. So, great. Well, thanks and good luck in your studies, and we hope to see you around. Thanks.